Hello and welcome back to Beyond the To-Do List, a podcast about productivity. I'm your host, Eric Fisher, and I have a treat this episode. Somebody that I've wanted to have on the show for a long time, ever since I saw them speak, not only in a large setting, but especially in a small setting. It's Duncan Wardle. He's the former head of innovation and creativity at Disney, a global speaker, and an expert in unlocking the human imagination. He recently released a book called The Imagination Emporium: The Creative Tools to Change the Way You Think. And if you've never heard Duncan speak, you're in for a treat. Although if you have heard him speak, you are more aware of how amazing Duncan is when he speaks. And as you guessed it, we're talking about creativity and imagination in this episode, why adults don't believe they're creative, and how to reclaim that curiosity and imagination we had when we were a kid, how to identify and escape rivers of thinking that limit our problem-solving abilities, and how to come up with fresh ideas, plus peppered in lessons from his time at Disney. This is an energy-packed episode, so enjoy this conversation with Duncan Wardle. Well, I am excited to bring to the show Duncan Wardle. Duncan, welcome to Beyond the To-Do List.
Thanks for having me.
So I just told you pre-recording that I've seen you a couple times, but the one time I really spent the most time was at our mutual friend Lou Mangello's Momentum event that he does every fall down in Florida. And you got to have free reign of the room. It was a room of about 50 people, and I was one of those people. And you were just taking us through this. It was almost, dare I say it, a Robin Williams-esque type time where it was like we'd spend time on one thing and then go to another and go to another, and it was like, this was amazing. But each time we paused and stopped and did a kind of a brain bending activity, it really illustrated, I think, what we're going to talk about today, which is imagination and creativity. And I couldn't help but walk away from that time thinking of this Pablo Picasso quote where he says, "Every child is an artist, and the problem is how to remain an artist once they grow up."
Yeah, that's the truth. So, right. So, now you started it, so now I'm going. We have a pen and a piece of paper. You got some pen and paper?
Okay, let's do this.
Come on, let's do this.
There we go.
All right, so put your pad of paper on your knee. Not on the desk. You'll cheat if you leave it on the desk.
All right.
I want you to, so 2 questions. Do you believe you're a creative person? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Do you believe you could draw like the Spanish painter Pablo Picasso? Yes or no?
Knowing his work, yes.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. You're going to look lovingly into my eyes, lovingly now, straight at my eyes.
Okay.
Straight at that webcam. So without once losing eye contact. You're not going to lose eye contact once. You're not going to look down that piece of paper because I'll bust your ass if you do. You have 20 seconds to draw my face starting from now. Do not look down. Go. Ba, ba, ba. You look down.
My pen was on the eraser.
Saw you.
Okay, now it's fixed.
Eyelashes, eyebrows, nose, ears, eyes. Oh, mouth. Got my chin, beard. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Share your genius.
All right. There.
Picasso. See, we don't think we could. People, it's amazing. When I walk into a room and ask people, hands up if you think you're creative, how few people will put their hands up. And then can you draw like Picasso? No. And then you give them an exercise and they draw a Picasso. The problem is school. I gave a talk at a university recently, 3,000 university students. And so I brought in a first grade class of 30 little 6-year-olds. And I said, hands up, who's creative? Me. 30 little hands didn't hesitate. The other 3,000 stayed down. But here comes artificial intelligence, scheduled to take away lots of jobs, obviously. But if you ask the people programming AI what they believe will be the most employable skill sets for the next 5 to 10 years, they'll tell you the ones that will be the hardest to program into AI. And then you ask them what they are, the ones with which we were born. Imagination, used to play with the box, not the toy. Curiosity, used to ask why, and why again. Intuition, empathy, imagination. These are all things with which we were born, but at the time we're 18, we've been told we're not creative so many times. Our first grade teacher tells us don't forget to colour in between the lines. Then she tells us, or he tells us, to stop asking why because there's only one right answer. So curiosity, creativity, imagination are pretty much dead by the time we enter the workforce.
Yeah. And going through those different exercises, it was just clear to us, I remember in that room, and even just what we did now was this kind of rediscovering or reawakening. It was kind of digging deep into like an old trunk we pulled out of a closet and finding it there at the bottom back corner.
Yeah, listen, when I ask people who are the most creative people they've ever met, people always say kids. And then you say, yeah, and how much money they got? Oh, that's right, they don't. So, but kids are better. What do they do better than us? They play, right? And when you ask people, where are you usually and what are you doing when you get your best ideas? People say shower, bathroom, walking, jogging, running, at the gym, falling asleep, waking up, on the beach. Nobody, I've done it with 20,000 people in a room and not one person wrote down at work. Ooh, that's a bummer, isn't it? Because we're paid to have big ideas at work, but we never do. And so when you think about the last argument you were in, you sort of walk away from the argument. 10 seconds later, bang, the killer one-liner. Oh, I wish I'd used that during the... But you never did. Because being in an argument is like being at the office. Your brain is moving at 1,000 miles an hour defending yourself or doing emails and presentations. And we hear ourselves say, I don't have time to think. And when we don't have time to think, that door between our conscious and subconscious brain is firmly closed, and we only have access to our conscious brain. And people listening in can Google what percentage of my brain is conscious. 13%, 87% of your brain is subconscious. Every meeting you've ever attended, every creative problem you've ever solved, every innovation you've ever seen is back here waiting to help you solve the challenge that you're on. But when the door is shut, you don't have access to it. So what do? I run energizers. Well, what's an energizer? We did one. I just made you draw a Picasso. It's a 60-second exercise specifically designed to make you laugh, because the moment I hear laughter, I know that I've subconsciously opened that door, metaphorically opened the door between your conscious and subconscious brain and metaphorically placed you back in the shower where you are when you have your best ideas. I don't expect people to be playful every minute of every day. Life would be great fun, but we wouldn't get my work done. I do expect people to be playful when they're trying to develop big ideas.
So obviously this idea of, or this approach of this reawakening, this rediscovering, this drawing back out of ourselves, or, pulling that out and using it. Obviously you're saying it doesn't happen at work traditionally or normality at this point, Never. But we want it to and need it to, especially in our day jobs and our commercial life, but also in the rest of our life too. But obviously that setting, busting that setting out, like doing I would say doing retreats, probably not just, that's not enough. It's not just enough to do that, but it's putting it into a ritualistic, without being constrictive, repetitive, in other words, making it normal, making it part of everyday life.
Yeah, when I was asked, that's a wrong word, when I was told, I was, you're going to be in charge of innovation and creativity at Pixar, Marvel, Lucasfilm, Disney. I was like, oh, what the hell is that? And Bob said, well, I don't know exactly. We just want to embed a culture of innovation and creativity into everybody's DNA. So I failed 3 times. The first time I thought, right, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to hire some consultancy and I said, make me look good. Model number 2, Duncan will be in charge of innovation. What could possibly go wrong? Well, nobody outside of legal does legal work. Nobody outside of marketing does marketing. Nobody outside of sales does. So when you have an innovation team, you subliminally just told everybody else in the organization, you're off the hook. We've got an innovation team. Model number 3 was an accelerated program where we bring in some young tech startups and take a 50-50 stake in their business. We could help them scale it and they could help us take it to market much quicker because they weren't encumbered by our politics. But we had failed in our overall goal, which was how might we embed a culture of innovation and creativity into everyone's DNA. So I thought, right, I'm going to make a toolkit that's going to have 3 principles. It's going to take intimidation out of innovation and make it accessible to normal, hardworking people. Make creativity tangible for 50% of us who are uncomfortable with ambiguity. Far more importantly, make it fun. Give people tools they choose to use when we're not around. That's when you know when you're changing a culture.
Including empowering and enabling permission.
Because a toolkit is you pick the tool, right? Yeah. And so 5-6 years on, I thought, right, every single time I get off a stage, have you got a book? No. Do you have a book? No. Do you have a book? No. Do you have a book? Piss off. No, I don't have a book. So I thought, right, I better do a book. So I said to the publisher, I said, it's not a book. He goes, well, what do you mean it's not a book? I said, okay. Well, actually, I'll ask you, when you see a book in a business environment, it's a business book, it's in your office somewhere. Where is the book traditionally? Where is it?
Sitting on a shelf.
Yeah, you go. And along with thousands of others that we've never read. Why? Because my boss needs something by 3 o'clock. I've got a deadline. I don't have time to read. So I thought, right, what book have I ever read, a non-fiction book, that I thought I can read 1 page today and put it down and read it and know exactly what I need to do now? My mum's cookbook. You want shepherd's pie? You got to page 67. Sherry trifle, page 3. So the book is designed the same way. So it says, the contents page, it says, have you ever been to a brainstorm when nothing ever happened as a result? Go to page 67. Work in a heavily regulated industry? Go to page 13. Don't know how to evaluate an idea? Go to page 47. So I'm trying to make it accessible to people. And then the other thing I wanted to do was appeal to how we learn. So close your eyes. How many days are there in September?
30.
Keep your eyes closed. How did you know? How did you remember? How did you learn? What eyes closed?
Oh.
What can you see with your eyes closed? How did you know there were 30 days in September?
I kind of have a semi-photographic memory, so I'm looking at it in my head, and I'm just kind of saying...
Bingo. Okay, no, that's it. You can see a calendar. 30% of the audience will do this. 30 days has September, blah, 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 November. Or they just told me they learned by listening. How do I know that? Because they learned it when they were 6. How do they remember it? Because they'd heard it. Another 30% puts their knuckles together and starts going January, February, March, April, May, June, July. They're kinesthetic learners. They learn by doing. You learn by seeing. So when I created the book, I thought, right, how do I appeal to all 3 learning styles? I thought, right, I love doing stuff I've never done before. There's a QR code in each chapter. Spotify playlists in each chapter for people who learn by listening. Animated videos. I'm now an animated character. I've never been a character. I went and shot on a green screen in Los Angeles. I now pop out of the pages with the characters from the book and show you how to use the tools. And in the back QR code is for the visual learners. The back cover is AI, first ever fully integrated artificial intelligence book ever published. Why? Because I didn't know how to do it. That's why. And so you can ask the book questions. You go through the back QR code, sign up on WhatsApp, and you can ask the book questions through ChatGPT. You can say, how could I use the what if tool on page 67 to help me sell more orange Sharpies on Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock? And the book will answer you. And it's bloody good. It scared the crap out of me. But no, because it's about making it fun and engaging for people. I mean, look, I come from Disney. It's about, is it a book or is it an experience? I would argue it's an experience.
Yeah. I think the one downside for me was I received a PDF copy, so it was flat on a screen. So I will be. But for me, again, I always love the tangible book. I love being able to open it and flip it.
So send me your address because I'll send you a copy. So this is the Imagination Emporium. Here it is right there.
Yes.
So, Spark, Zing, Nova. So, because when I originally created the book, I created this character. I mean, come on, I come from Disney. You've got to have a character somewhere. So I thought, right, we're going to have Archie. Archie he's a direct descendant of Archimedes. Well, why Archimedes? Well, because when you ask people where they are when they have best ideas, they say the shower. Well, Archimedes was in the bath. So I'm sketching it and drawing it and getting it into graphic design. I was pretty pleased with it. My daughter walks in, who's about 25. She goes, Dad, he's an old white guy. You're an old white guy. You can't do that anymore. So I've created three new characters. Spark is masculine. He's a light bulb. He introduces you to the creative behaviors. Zing, gender neutral, introduces you to the energizers. And Nova, she's female, and she introduces you to each of the tools. And so this isn't a book about case studies. This is a recipe book. Here's the challenge you've got. This is the tool to use, and this is how to use it.
Well, let's dive into those characters a little bit. I'm more curious now. I think the listeners are as well in terms of those Let's talk activators for a minute.
I chose Spark for the creative behaviors. Here's the thing. Everybody's always focused about. I read this article in Harvard Business Review a few years ago, and it said, "Profits first, culture will follow." I was like, "You losers." It's culture first and profits will follow. If you don't get the culture right, you can have all the tools you want. It doesn't matter. But getting the culture right is so important. You and I both know that when we go to work, or every time we pitch an idea, it's no, because we tried that last year. No, because that won't hit our KPIs. No, because that's not the way we do it here. So actually, I want to demonstrate this for your listeners. So you and I are charged with coming up with a birthday party. We've got $100,000 in the budget. What do you want? Star Wars, Harry Potter? What's the theme of this party?
Let's go Marvel.
Marvel. So I'm going to come at you with some ideas for a Marvel party. I'd like you to start each and every response with the words you know you hear every day. No, because, and then you'll tell me why not. Okay, but each time you'll respond with no, because. So I was thinking, right, Guardians, the Galaxy party. Yeah, we could go, yes, with Groot and Rocket and the big guy and Star-Lord. It could be a costume party, and we could go around all planets. Hey, we could take on Thor.
No, because the costumes are going to cost too much.
All right. Oh, man. Okay. Well, tell you what, then. What if we just brought the costumes from the sets? So with just the set costumes, and we'll actually have, like one of those displays of all the costumes in like sort of a museum setting. We'd have some cocktails. No,
because transporting them, they've got to be guarded.
All right. Okay. Right. What if I tell you what, we do a Guardians of the Galaxy party, and then everybody could come dressed as their favorite character, so we wouldn't have to spend any money on the costumes. We have a cosplay party.
No, because everybody's going to feel like they've got to have a competition going to win.
Right. I'll tell you what, then, what if we just show all 3 movies in a movie theater and we give people some free popcorn and Coca-Cola?
No, because we don't know how many are going to show up and we can't estimate the cost correctly.
Okay. So
I'm having fun with that. Coming up with those.
Yeah, were you in legal for a while? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding to all my legal friends. Legal people are much more creative than anybody gives them credit for. The problem is we leave them to the last possible minute to see if they can help us solve something. So let me ask you a question. Do you think that was getting bigger or smaller as we were going along?
It's constricting. It's getting smaller every time.
Yeah, of course. If I was honest, I'd say it was like business as usual. So let's do it again. I'm going to give your listeners a different tool, one that I believe can change your culture overnight. So this time it's doing Potter or Star Wars. What are we doing?
Let's do Star Wars.
Okay, so I'm going to come at you some Star Wars ideas. Unlike the first exercise where you started with the words no because each time, this time I want you to start with the words yes and we'll just build it together, okay? So, right. Ooh, I tell you what, we could get one of those dark black carpets and then we could do holographic projections onto it in a galaxy far, far away. And then it would actually name all of us individually as we're going up the carpet.
Yes, and once in a while we can have the lights flash like we're going into hyperspace.
Ooh, yes, and we can have glow-in-the-dark lightsabers.
Yes, and
one of
we
our
can
favorite
even
alcoholic liquids.
Yes, and we can have blasters that shoot lights.
Oh, yeah, I tell you what, yes, and we could do an intergalactic food and wine festival. We could have food and wine from the Hoth and the Boo and Tatooine.
Yes, and we can definitely have people dress up because we want to have everybody bring their favorite Star Wars character.
Oh, yes, and all the tall people could come as Vader and all the little people would dress as Ewoks.
Yes, and even all of them in between, and we can see who can do the best Wookiee impression.
Yes. Oh, no, so we could put them all on a big corporate jet and fly them down to Disney World to see the new Galaxy's Edge.
I don't know what I was going to say, but yeah.
A lot more laughter, a lot more energy, but you became Italian for the first time today. You're right, I was with you. So this time around, was the idea getting bigger or smaller?
It was getting bigger. We expand. We're adding into it.
Right. And we have colleagues and clients and constituents and government and people that we need to bring on board with our ideas. When we just finished building that idea together, whose idea was it by the time we finished?
Everybody's.
Ours. Two
Yes.
very simple words from the word of improv that can take a small idea into a big one really, really, really quickly. But far more importantly, has the power of transforming my idea to our idea and accelerate its opportunity to get done. Just remind yourselves, when people come at you with an idea you're not thinking of, that's a really good place to start. Innovation is about getting you to an idea you can't get to by yourself. But just remind yourselves, if you tend to be one of those people who always kill the ideas, just remind yourselves, we're not greenlighting this idea for execution today. We're merely greenhousing it together using yes and.
Oh, I love the word greenhouse. The other thing I noticed was that instead of constricting it as we went, we were expanding. And then when we get to that semi-end, well, you even said bring the lawyers in early, but even if we get to that point where logistically some of what we suggested isn't going to work, we find that out later and we haven't limited ourselves or walled ourselves off from entertaining those possibilities.
I'm very clear. This is an expansive session or is a reductive session. And if you're an expansive session, you don't get to use the words no because. One of the things I would offer some advice is we all have boring meeting rooms where we work. Well, but all of us have an art school within 5 miles of where we work. Well, what if we got the art students to come in and paint a greenhouse around the walls? Call it the greenhouse. And everybody knows when they walk into the greenhouse, this is the one room where you don't get to kill ideas. It's absolutely essential. And they are just ideas.
Yeah. Yes, because good ideas come from many ideas.
Ed Catmull once said, good ideas and creativity don't follow job titles. They just come from where they come from.
Oh, that's great. That was a great example of an activator. Let's go back to one of those other characters. What were the other two? I forget their names off the top of my head.
Zing does energizers. Energizers are so when we never get our best idea at work, right? It's always in the shower. It's always somewhere else. It's never at work. So energizers are specifically designed to open the door between your conscious and subconscious brain and metaphorically place you back in the shower. What are they? 60-second exercises specifically designed to make you laugh. So Zing actually takes you through them all. We did the earlier one where we became Picasso. So there are some again, they are specifically designed with laughter in mind to get you out of busy beta, that's the brain state that science calls beta, and into alpha, where you open the door between your conscious and subconscious brain.
Okay. You got any other ones? Let's do another one real quick.
Another energizer?
Yeah.
Well, actually, no. So this is half energizer, but half to make a point. This is an innovation tool. This is one's brought to you by Nova. This one is who else? Who else is uniquely positioned to get you out of your... So we say the biggest barrier to innovation is I don't have time to think. I would argue it is, in fact, all of us and our own river of thinking. Well, what's a river of thinking? A river of thinking is our own expertise and our own experience. And the more expertise and experience we have, the wider, the faster, the deeper is our river of thinking in the industry in which we work. And that worked really well up until 2020. And then we had a global pandemic, global climate change, Generation Z coming in the workforce, and AI. We don't get to think the way we thought for our career. So the tools are specifically designed to get you out of your river of thinking and thinking differently. So this one is about who else is uniquely positioned to get you out of your river of thinking. This is the naive expert. Well, who or what are they? Well, they are chosen because they don't work in your line of business or perhaps your industry. Well, why are they there then? Well, they're not there to solve the challenge. That would be an unrealistic objective. They're there to say or do something to stop you thinking the way you always do and to give you permission to think differently. We were designing a new retail dining and entertainment complex for the Hong Kong Disney Resort. In the room that day were 12 white male American architects, Disney Imagineering. So I invited in a young female Chinese chef. Why? She was female, not male. Chinese, not American. Under 20, not over 50. And far more importantly, she was a chef, not an architect. And I gave them the following challenge that I'm going to give you now. You're going to need your pen and paper again.
All right.
This time you do get to look down. I'm going to name an object. You're going to draw it, but you only have 7 seconds. Ready?
Ready.
Okay. Please, would you draw a house? 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Share your genius. Let's take a look. And look at that. Twins.
That looks very close. Yes.
So we both drew one door. We both drew 2 windows, and we both drew the roof the shape of a triangle. Why? Because all of our expertise and all of our experience tells us that's what a house should look like. The young Chinese chef, she was there. So everybody drew exactly what you and I did, except the young female Chinese chef. She drew dim sum architecture. Why wouldn't she? She's a young female Chinese chef. Never occurred to her to draw the house the same way we would. On the way out the door, a Disney Imagineer put a post-it note over a drawing which said, distinctly Disney, authentically Chinese. 7 years later, the strategic brand positioning that guided the entire design of the Shanghai Disney Resort, distinctly Disney, authentically Chinese. Now, I can bounce back to one of the behaviors. So we'll do bravery here. So, bravery. We want to hear a story about how I sent Buzz Lightyear into space or how I stole the turkey from the President of the United States of America on Thanksgiving Day. What would you prefer?
That the turkey. I've heard the Buzz Lightyear story, so the turkey one is piquing my interest for sure.
Okay. So this is all about bravery. And that wonderful quote by Henry Ford, whether or not you think you can or think you can't, you're probably right. So we were tasked with getting some coverage for Disneyland's 50th anniversary. The actual anniversary was over. It was in July. So the media were like, please, we don't want to talk about it anymore. So we were like, well, okay, what are those other events in the American calendar that the media will have to cover? Well, they're going to have to cover Mother's Day, Father's Day, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas. So I said, well, tell me about Thanksgiving. And this guy, Tim, said, well, the president pardons the turkey. And as you know, Disneyland is the happiest place on earth. That's its brand position. I said, what do you mean he pardons a turkey? They said, yeah, the president of the United States of America pardons a turkey every Tuesday before Thanksgiving. I was like, oh, wow. He said he goes back to Eisenhower. I was like, wow, okay. I said, well, so that's the one turkey pardons, so they don't get killed, right? He said, yeah. I said, well, wouldn't that make it the happiest turkey on earth? And everybody was like, oh, don't even go there. I was like, come on. I'm a great believer in whether or not you think you can or think you can't. You're probably right. So I phone up the White House. I'm a great believer also. Pick up the phone and make your pitch. They can say no, they could laugh, they could put the phone down. Who cares? So I said, what do you do with the turkeys after the pardoning ceremony? And the director of comms at the White House said, oh, we send it to the National Turkey Federation. I said, oh, didn't know we had one. I said, well, you couldn't give me their phone number, could you? So he did. So I phoned the president of the National Turkey Federation. I said, what do you do with the turkeys after the pardoning ceremony? He says, oh, we put them on a petting zoo in Virginia. I was like, oh, can I have it? He goes, yeah. I was like, oh, aren't we supposed to negotiate or haggle a bit? Anyway, so then I found out more about turkeys than you could possibly want to learn. Turkeys, when grown to a certain size, such as the pardoning turkeys for the ceremony, have heart attacks and die like that. I thought, wow, You want coverage? I'll get you coverage. The one turkey killed, pardoned by the President of the United States of America, is killed by a British PR guy in a stunt for Disney. So in a moment of total and utter stupidity, in one of those seemed like a good decision at the time, I sent Pilgrim Mickey, the walk-around character, and the parade music up to the pen in Virginia for 2 weeks. Oh, yes, I did. So that the turkey will get acclimatized. And then I thought, I wonder if the National Turkey Federation have told the White House we're taking the turkey. I thought, well, I better phone up. So I phoned up the National, and I said, you have told the White House Disney's taking the turkey, right? He said, no. I said, well, you're going to have to, because we're going to do the MVP spot, turkey one. You've just been pardoned by the President of the United States. What are you going to do next? Gobble, gobble, gobble. I'm going to Disneyland. So they phoned the White House. I thought, this is going to kill it. So then we get a call back from the White House. Goes, President loves the idea. Let's do it. I was like, oh, God, great. So then I get a call from our chairman, who says, Duncan, I see you've booked the corporate jet out of Washington, D.C. to LAX on the 23rd of November. Can you tell me the passenger manifest, please? I was, well, Jay, got to move a couple of turkeys. He goes, absolutely not. I said, well, Jay, the President of the United States of America says he's in. If you kill the jet, we're dead, because this is the busiest travel day of the year. He goes, don't care, not having it. It's like, seriously, dude? It was Bob Iger had just become CEO, and this was Jay's first request for the corporate jet. So can you imagine your first request? So I got it. I understood it. So I phoned up the director of comms at United Airlines. I said, what would it cost me exactly for you to give me the emails of everybody in first class on that flight? Oh, yes, in the days before ethics and morals. So anyway, these people got lovely vacations at Disney for many, many years. And then we're a couple of weeks out from the event where you think nothing else could possibly go wrong. Bird flu hits the United States of America. I was like, oh, for God's sake, give me a break. So I phoned up the director of comms at United Airlines and said, look, we're going to have a bit of fun with this. So unbeknownst to us, United Airlines had worked with the Federal Aviation Authority to change the flight number from UA253. And when in the old days where the billboard would come down, where they used to make running water before, and it just said, Turkey 1. I was like, oh my God, we changed the flight. Turkey 1. So then, on board, there are little postcards in everybody's seat saying, in honor of today's guests, the turkeys from the White House, we will not be serving turkey sandwiches on today's flight. We will serve ham or cheese. So I was kind of getting into the spirit of it. And then I was at a meeting that was probably my favorite meeting in 30 years with the Walt Disney Company. One of those, you can't believe we're having this conversation. Vice President, Senior Vice President, Executive Vice President, Operations, Animal Welfare Rights, Corporate Communications Center, you name it. And the sole conversation for 2 hours was, if the turkey dies halfway down Main Street, USA, will we run out and shroud it, or we just look the other way and pretend it doesn't happen? Well, unbeknownst to everybody at the time, God bless the United States of America, the turkey that travels to the White House travels with a stunt double. This guy called Denny pops up in the middle of the meeting from entertainment. He goes, do you remember the old black and white spy movies? I was like, Denny, you really want to bring that up right now? He goes, yeah. When the good guy's running away from the bad guy, he gets up against the wall and his hand hits a panel and the wall goes, and he's on the other side of the wall. He's got away. He goes, I said, yeah. So he goes, I'll build you one of those. We're going to put Turkey 1 out the front. We'll put a giant Lazy Susan on the float. If Turkey 1 goes down, I'll hit the button. I've got your back. I said, oh my God, this is genius. You know what I loved about Disney was you could throw out, oh, here's an impossible thing. And somebody go, yeah, I got it. Wow. That's what I loved about working for Disney. So now we go into the White House. It's the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. Clearly, obviously, nothing else could possibly go wrong this day. But unbeknownst to us, George Bush's scriptwriters had decided to have a bit of fun at our expense, but nobody had told us. So we walk in. George Bush comes in. It was raining. It was in the Rose Room, or not the Rose Garden. It was in a briefing room. I can't remember which one. And he says, this year, Marshmallow and Yam, that's the names, because America gets the name of the turkeys every year. We're a little bit nervous about going back to a place called Frying Pan Park. I was like, oh my God, who called it Frying Pan Park? So he goes, this year the turkeys are going to Disneyland. I was like, oh my God, did the President of America just say the turkeys are going to Disneyland? He goes, not only that, well, they'll serve the rest of their days as at Disneyland. I was like, did the President just say turkeys, Disneyland twice in 20 seconds? And he wraps up his speech. He says, and finally, Marshmallow and Yam will serve as Grand Marshals in Disneyland's Thanksgiving Day Parade. I was on my knees. I was like, this is the best day of my life. And then the head of entertainment, George leaves the room. Sorry, the president. And then the head of entertainment comes screaming across the briefing room, looking absolutely furious. I was like, dude, this is the best day of my life. Don't spoil it. He goes, we don't have a Thanksgiving Day Parade. He goes, you've got 2 days to create 3 floats. It will cost you $750,000. I said, well, Matt, I don't have any money, but the president says we're doing it, so over to you. So 2 days later, Marshmallow and Yam came down May Street, USA as Grand Marshals in Disneyland's Thanksgiving Day Parade. So, and then they lasted much longer than me, a couple of years. And then the day they passed away, I served turkey sandwiches in the office in honor of the service.
Oh, wow.
And this to me is the epitome of Henry Ford's quote, whether or not you think you can or think you can't, you're probably right.
It also makes me think of Walt Disney and how he had this, the Imagineers, and that they were empowered and gave permission and they were trained. And so as you're telling that story, I'm thinking, oh, there's some resistance occasionally here and there, but there's also these heroes in a sense that step up because they yes-and it.
That's a great example. There's a tool called What If, which is in the book. The tools are designed simple, powerful, fun. Take the BS out of innovation and make it less intimidating. Make creativity tangible for those of us uncomfortable with ambiguity, but make it fun. Well, this tool is for all those rule breakers out there. I love breaking. And so it was created by Walt Disney for the film Fantasia. He wanted heat and mist pumped into the theatre. And the theatre owner said, no, Walt, that's not the way we do it here. We tried that last year, blah, blah, blah. Step 1, list the rules of your challenge. So Walt listed the rules of going to a movie theatre. I must sit down. I must be quiet. It is dark. I must pay to get in. I must watch the previews. I, Walt, can't control the environment in which consumers experience my product. So he listed the rules. Step 1, list the rules of the challenge you're working on next week. Don't think about them or you'll think of all the reasons you can't break them. Step 2, pick one rule and ask the most audacious, provocative, outrageous what-if statement. So Walt chose the environment and said, what if I could control the environment? Well, he couldn't. Besides, it wasn't provocative enough. So he said, all right, if I can't control the environment inside the theatre, what if I take my movies out of the theatre? Well, don't be daft, Walt. They're two-dimensional. They'll fall over. What if I made them three-dimensional? If you know the answer, you're illustrating. If it scares you, you're innovating. Well, how are you going to do that, Walt? Well, what if I had people dress up in costumes? I could have princesses, cowboys, and pirates. Yeah, but Walt, you can't have Cinderella standing next to Jack Sparrow. People wouldn't be immersed in her story. Yeah, you're right. What if I put them in different lands? Oh, wait a minute. What if I called it Disneyland? Boom, we're done here. Simple, powerful, fun. Now, for those people listening, they're going to go, great, I'm not Disney. I don't have his resources. So I'll give you a small example because I want people to understand they can use the tools too. A very small company in Great Britain in the late 60s that used to make glasses that we drink out of found there was too much breakage and not enough production. So they went down to the shop floor, just watched the process and wrote down the rules. 26 employees, conveyor belt, glasses in a cardboard box. Boxes hold 12 glasses each, 6 on the top, 6 on the bottom. Glasses separated by corrugated cardboard. Glasses wrapped individually in newspaper. Employees reading the newspaper. So somebody asked the somewhat provocative what-if question, what if we poke their eyes out? Well, that's against the law and it's not very nice. But because they had the courage to ask the most audacious what-if statement of all, the lady sitting next to me immediately got out of her river thinking, said, well, hang on a minute, why don't we just hire blind people? So they did. Production up 26%, breakage down 42%, and the British government gave them a 50% salary subsidy for hiring people with disabilities. So it's a genius of a tool. Another one that we use a lot at Disney is about how to just reframe a challenge. So Walt, for example, opening day Disneyland, he said, we won't have any customers and employees, we'll have cast members and guests. And with that simple re-expression of the relationship between the customer and the employees, the cast member and the guest, Walt created a level of hospitality that's rarely been repeated elsewhere. So how does that work in real terms? Well, in 2011, if we asked the question, how might we make more money? We'd have put the gate price up at Walt Disney World by 3% and made our quarterly results. If you know the answer, you're iterating. So instead of saying that, we turned the challenge and said, how might we solve the biggest consumer pain point? Everybody knew what it was standing in line. And I said, what if there were no lines? Didn't know how to do it. And then we used a tool called Where Else, which is also in the book. It's about looking outside of your own industry for an insight for innovation and asking. So the question we asked is, where in the world has somebody already solved the challenge of people not standing in line? We found a very small pharmacy in Tokyo, Japan, using RFID technology to enable people not to stand in line. Bing! Welcome to the world of Disney's Magic Band, which, has been phased out in favor of the iPhone today, but it was there for a decade. It was your room key. It was your theme park ticket. It was your reservations for a favorite character meet and greet, your favorite ride. You could pay for merchandise with it. You could save your food on your smartphone, walk into the restaurant when you wanted to walk in. Food came fresh to you. Have you started by asking how might we make more money? Yeah, we'd have made 3%, but by reversing it from the consumer's biggest pain point, asking how might we solve that, the average guest at Walt Disney World today has 2 hours free time each and every day. What has that resulted in? Record intent to recommend, record intent to return, record revenues. And what are you doing every second of every day? You're live crowdsourcing the future products and service Disney creates by telling them what you like and what you don't. Now, again, that's a big example. So people will be sitting there saying, I don't have the resources. And that's very true. It's very fair. But I was up in New York waiting for an appointment, sat chatting to the young lady behind the reception desk, got upstairs, said to the boss, your reception is so friendly, so welcoming, so empathetic. He said, oh, that's nice. How long are you chatting to her for? I said, oh, I don't know, about 10 minutes, I suppose. He goes, oh, that's odd. I said, well, why is that odd? He said, well, we don't have a receptionist. I was like, well, who the hell was I talking to for the last 10 minutes? I said, well, hang on a minute. Her name was Sarah. She had a summer dress on. It had no sleeves. He goes, Sarah. Sarah's our director of first impressions. Boom. That simple re-expression of a form of employment from receptionist to director. So it's about just re-expressing the challenge again to get us out of our river of thinking and thinking differently.
Now, to do that same kind of reframing here, I know a lot of people are like, okay, these are great, exciting examples, and I'm following along, and I want to make this happen where I am, in my small company or in my role at a larger company, but I'm going to have resistance. How do I start to get the momentum started and then have it increase and catch on to everybody else?
Firstly, the great thing is I'm telling stories today, but the book doesn't. The book goes, it's a cookbook. Step 1, do this. Step 2, step 3. So the recipes are there. The other thing that I would strongly advise you to do with your leadership team is the exercise we did at the beginning of this meeting, where you get people to stand together, get them to stand up in their pairs, demonstrate it first, and get them to say no because. And what you'll notice is the idea gets smaller. Then get them to stand up again and get them to use yes and you'll see the energy in the room shoot up. You'll see the ideas get bigger, and you'll see that they're transferring the power of my idea to our idea. I think that one is particularly important. The other one, I think I mentioned about the greenhouse. I mentioned the greenhouse?
Yes.
I think I mentioned the greenhouse. Yeah, having one room, a physical room, where everybody knows this is the one room where I don't get to kill ideas. I think it's essential. Where the Pixar, Marvel, Disney was called Ideate, after which I named my company. You've just got to have that one room where today you don't get to kill ideas. Make sure that people understand we're expansive thinking today, not reductive, and know that they will have the opportunity to be reductive in a separate session, but not today.
I think the other thing, if I can throw out ideas here, I'm going to yes and grab a bunch of the books and have people go to that greenhouse room and come back with their favorite 3 recipes that they looked at for the week. Something along those lines. And
I think
what they used it for.
Yeah, I think the other thing that's really important is, if I ask people, do you order the same thing when you go to your favorite restaurant? The answer is yes. If you do you always sleep on the same side of the bed? Yes. Have you ever got home and realized and wondered how you got there? Yes. Because on the way home, our brain shut down and didn't wake up till we got home. No fresh stimulus in, no new ideas out. So how do we get fresh stimulus into our lives? Well, Pixar doesn't sit by department, marketing, sales, IT. They sit all over the place. This philosophy created by Steve Jobs called unplanned collaboration, specifically designed to bring 2 people together to meet who were not supposed to meet, to have a conversation they weren't supposed to have to spark a new idea. Microsoft has Think Week, no meetings, no emails, no presentations. Google, they have 20% time for their engineers. But so I'm not suggesting you walk up to your boss and say, dude, from now on I need Fridays off. Duncan said 20%. But what if you took 1 hour a month, the first Friday of every month, 9 till 10 a.m., brown bag breakfast, real or virtual, and invite your team in, no PowerPoint presentations, no why is it good for the business. Just ask them to come in and to be prepared to talk about something they've seen in the last 30 days in their business life, or ideally their personal life, that they thought was innovative or creative. You'll be amazed at the amount of new ideas and energy you drive into the building.
Oh, yeah. And the examples there, I mean, as people have listened throughout this conversation, they've gotten ideas and they've been, I hope, writing things down, unless they're driving. But, pull your Apple Watch out and take an audio note. But they've been taking notes. In other words, they've had imagination sparked inside of them. And that's what that does. But it's collective, and it's seeing those examples. Oh, I didn't even think of that. And then they hear the example, they hear that story from somebody else, and the fire grows.
Yeah, look, we're all told, oh, you're a lawyer, you're not creative. Oh, you're an accountant, you're not creative. Sorry, but this term, the creatives, give me a break. Oh, I wear a black shirt, so I'm so much cooler than everybody else. I'm sorry, I don't attest to it at all. Everybody is born creative. Education starts to squeeze it out of you, and we'll come back to that in a minute. But I define creativity as the ability to have an idea. Everybody does that 100 times a day. I define innovation as the ability to get that idea done. That's the hard part. That's what the tools in the book are for. But here's our challenge, right? When we're born and you were given a gift for a holiday and it came in a huge box, what do you spend the rest of the week playing with? But the box was our spaceship, it was our rocket ship, it was anything we wanted to be, until we went to school and we were told to don't forget to colour in between the lines. We used to, so the children, if you ask people who are the most creative, people say children, you ask them, what do they do more than you? They say, they ask questions. Well, what question does a small child ask you again and again and again and again?
Why?
Why? Because they know you haven't told the truth. They're after the insight for innovation. They're after the core consumer truth. And our data today, as good as it is, only goes to the first or second why, but the child will go to the fifth or sixth why. So if you survey people, ask them why they go to Disney, the number one response is we go for the new attractions. Well, if I were to only rely on my data, I'd go spend $240 million on a capital investment strategy. But if I were to pause and act childlike for a moment, not childish, and say, well, why do you go for the new attractions? Well, no, I like the classics. Well, why on earth do you like the classics? Well, believe it or not, I like it's a small one. Why on earth do you like it's a small one? Well, I remember the music. Oh, God, no, not the music. Why the music? Well, it's my mum's favourite ride. We used to go every summer. Why is that important to you 25 years later? I take my daughter now. Boom, there's your insight for innovation. It has nothing to do with the capital investment strategy and everything to do with our personal memory and nostalgia. But then we go to school, and the next thing we're told to do is don't forget to stop asking why, because there's only one right answer. Here's our challenge. And I've done this with 5,000 students at the university, and I brought in that first grade class and asked them who was creative, and 30 little hands went, me, but everybody else hands down. I've been working with Google on their DeepMind project, which is their AI project, and I asked their lead engineer, I was like, how am I going to compete with this? And she said, well, the things that will be the most employable skill sets for the next short term, 5 to 10 years, will be those things that will be the hardest for her to program into AI. And I asked her what they were. She said the ones with which you were born. Imagination, creativity, curiosity, empathy, and intuition. She said those will be the hardest to program. And so whilst they may not have been the most important skill sets of our entire career, they are now.
And those aren't skills that even fake AI, fake intelligence is what I often call it, they can emulate it to a certain extent, but it's emulation. It's not true using of the skill.
I'll bet you they get to all 5 eventually.
Yeah, I can see it eventually, but it's going to be a while.
Fortunately, not in my lifetime.
And hopefully not mine.
But by the way, see, look, all of us wake up every single day and we can't decide, are we frightened of AI or are we excited by it, right? We go backwards and forwards to it. But look, just remember, AI gave us a vaccine for a global pandemic that would have wiped out the planet. They made it in 6 months versus 10 years. But here's the other thing. When I ask people, what's the biggest barrier to being more innovative and creative where they work, the number one response I get is, I don't have time to think. Well, what do you think AI is about to give you? It's going to do your weekly reports, expense reports, forecasting, account, all the stuff that you didn't want to do anyway. It's going to give us the gift of time to think.
And that frees us up to be able to be creative again, step into it and start doing this stuff. Duncan, it's been great talking to you as usual. I'd love to point people to where they can find out more about the experience, not just the book, and jump on board.
TheImaginationEmporium.com.
Awesome. And I'll link that up in the show notes so people can find it. Duncan, it's been great talking with you. You have an open ticket. Anytime you want to come back and talk, feel free. Great having you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks again.
Well, that's another podcast crossed off your listening to-do list. I hope that you got many, many things out of this conversation, and I hope that you go grab the book because it is definitely worth grabbing. Like I said in the conversation, I saw Duncan in person for about 2 hours plus in about a 50, 60 person room, and we went through so many of these activators and things that got us out of our rivers of thinking, and then we would brainstorm on our own stuff, and it was just a fantastic time. So I knew when the option for him to be on the show came up, I had to do it, and I hope that you are walking away energized and contemplating the possibilities that are in front of you if you start to put into place and do some of the things that he talked about in this episode and in his book. So check the show notes. BeyondTheToDoList.com is where you can find those. You'll find the link to the book there, as well as how to get in touch with all the other things Duncan is doing. If you found this podcast helpful, pass it on. Please do me the favor of sending this to somebody you know needs to hear it. Share it on social. Tag me, tag Duncan. Thank you so much for sharing. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next episode.